just spoke with Thea and Dave. They're from 99 Content, and funnily enough, our first chat with Thea a year ago or something like that was literally our most popular podcast that we've ever done to date. So it turns out content marketing is hugely important to financial advisors, which is why this whole new series on marketing is kicking off. So hopefully you enjoy. We go through how you can get the most out of your own content, and also if you want to touch base with them, they can do it for you. But yeah, hopefully you enjoy. So who is Sun Super? Well, if you haven't been living under a rock, then you've probably heard of them. But just in case you have been, they currently hold the salubrious title of being the only super fund to be named Fund of the Year by no less than 5 different rating organizations in 1 year, including Champ West and Super Ratings. They've grown dramatically over the past few years and today have more than $58 billion in funds under management and 1.3 million members, making them the 5th largest fund in the country. These accolades and growth in part can be attributed to their strong and clear focus on delivering the best retirement outcomes for their members. And because they're a profit for members fund, all the profits go back into the business to improve the products and services they offer to clients, including registered financial advisors. In addition, their performance is strong. Their balanced investment option has outperformed the industry average over 1, 3, 5, 7, and 10 years to the end of September. And to top it all off, they're a really great bunch to work with. So take the time to find a bit more about what they can offer you and your clients by visiting sunsuper.com.au/advisor. It's great to have Thea back in, and Dave, thank you very much for joining us. Now, I know I just said this to you before, but you didn't believe me, but truly the top downloaded podcast that we've ever had was Ray's conversation with you. So it's awesome to have you back on again, and it's actually kicked off this concept that's dawned on me, and I'm not sure if you guys realize this, but advisors would love to know more about marketing. Well, of course, that's why you started your business. So, okay, you both live in Vietnam, right? Or in Southeast Asia, I should say.
Yeah, so we developed the idea for our business in Asia when we were writing content for ASX 100 clients, and we realized that there wasn't really a product out there that was affordable and good content for SMEs, financial advisors, mortgage brokers, accountants. We designed 99 Content overseas over 18 months in Vietnam. It's a little bit of a startup scene over there.
Yeah.
And now that it's up and running, we're back in Melbourne. We moved to Melbourne about 1 month ago.
Oh, cool. So you did sort of 18 months or whatever it was.
3 years in
3
Asia,
years.
18
Wow.
in Indonesia, where we were writing the content for basically sort of the top end of town, the banks, the insurance companies.
Yeah.
And so we actually were doing some content with you and Ray Dramas, crafting content for some content agencies for some of those big clients. And then, we just thought, hey, there's a lot of opportunity out there for SMEs to get more content as well.
Why did you move back to Oz?
I'll let Thea take this one.
Ready to be back closer to family.
Awesome.
And we're expanding the stable. We're getting a pup turn next week, so we'll have the dog in the office as well.
Wow, that's cool. And was it a great experience, 3 years overseas?
Yeah, it was phenomenal. We were really lucky to be able to base ourselves in some amazing cities, amazing food, and then spend a lot of time doing visa runs to fabulous nearby places. So it was pretty special.
That's fantastic. In fact, you guys obviously love to travel, Iraq being one of them. And we were talking earlier about this very interesting topic of being invited into a friendly Iraqi household, and then they turned out to be swingers. So how do you sort of manage that situation?
Oh, it was amazing. So we spent 2 years in Europe traveling around.
Whoa.
And the last 6 months we were sort of thinking, well, we've got to go back to Australia with some sort of work under our belt. Like, we can't have just 2 years backpacking as a resume if you want to work in Parliament House in the press gallery.
Yeah.
So we're like, where should we go? And we're like, okay, we'll Erdogan's grabbing more power in Turkey. Let's head that way.
Whoa.
On the way, we stopped by a prison. There's a Sydney person in jail over in Bulgaria, so we did a documentary for ABC on that. And then we're like, once we got to Turkey, we're like, let's go to Iraq. And then Basically,
it was post-Saddam, pre-ISIS, so it was that little golden period about 5 years ago where it was relatively safe to travel in northern Iraq.
Wow.
Yeah, so everyone was amazing. Like we first got there and sitting in a restaurant all nervous, and basically a person comes up to us and pays for our meal. And then from there, we just had 2 weeks of amazing hospitality.
Wow.
And then,
So from going from thinking we were going to sort of run into a real trouble in Iraq to just being so welcomed with absolute open arms.
Yeah, and it wasn't just there. Like Thea, who initially blamed me for losing the passports, lost our passports one day. And it took we thought we had to go to Baghdad to the embassy, which we did not want to go to. And then anyway, we ended up getting them. But in the meantime, we got looked after by the community. They welcomed us in and then stayed there. So we just had an amazing time. Let our guards down a little bit. And yes, the very last night when we went to pick up our car,
we'd crossed back into Turkey, so it was the border with Turkey and Iran.
Right.
To Iraq.
Iraq, sorry.
Turkey and Iraq. And this family, so this family worked in Iraq every day. Doing runs. They'd go and get oil and then bring it back into Turkey. So
wow.
I thought we'd spend a bit more time finding a little bit about that, how there's that sort of those sort of jobs going right on the border. And we're walking around the suburbs of this border town where there was armoured vehicles and everything. All the women were in niqabs, a very, very conservative part of the world. And anyway, we were introduced to the family, the kids, and it seemed like quite a normal evening. We went to bed, and then about 10 minutes after we sort of went to sleep, there was a little knock on the door, and we started getting all worried, like, have we done something culturally insensitive? What's going on?
And then you've gone to bed.
Yes, and then they sat on the end of the bed, and for the next 2 hours, we were saying the words no.
Holy moly! That is a travel experience.
Yeah, and we were a little bit naive, I guess, but it sort of, on the flip side, the positive we try and take out of it is don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Even in the most conservative parts of the world, they're
more liberal than us.
Yeah.
Wow, that is cool. And so you're doing all this traveling, and you at the same time you decided to start this business, and it ends up being 99 Content, right? And where's the name come from, first of all?
The name is obviously there's two reasons to it. The cost is $99 a month, but that's not the only thing. The tagline is we do 99% of the work. You hit publish.
Cool.
So we basically try and take all the work out of it involved. It's easier than creating a Facebook post because it's just logging into your WordPress website, hitting publish on the content.
Yeah.
So you don't even need to type the status out.
And so there are many different ways to get clients. There's very different types of marketing, and this marketing series is all about that. For all professions, actually, that's kind of like what I'm going to focus in on here. So, what is it about content marketing that you both believe is the most effective form of marketing?
I like content marketing because it gives. It doesn't just pop up in your face and ask for something of you. By marketing content, you're providing information, you're providing an educational service, you are giving something. And it's the kind of marketing that may have a longer lead time, but by regularly providing that kind of educational content, you're really demonstrating your value in between appointments.
Yeah. So have you guys looked at the success rate of content marketing? And before we even get to the results what in your mind, what is the process of getting content in front of people in order for them to receive the value?
So the process is quite simple. Everyone's got their email lists, their Facebook businesses.
Right.
It's pretty
So you're just shooting them an email?
Basically, but you're trying to just more make it look like you're offering value. You're not saying, hey, come visit me for a checkup. It's, hey, there's been this industry change that could affect your financial situation at the moment. If you think you fall into this category, might want to give us a buzz, or if you know someone that does.
Okay, so it's topical, and you're trying to distill what's happening in and around financial planning or whatever the topic is, and turn it into a knowledge base for an advisor or mortgage broker or accountant with an existing mailing list. Is this it? What do you think? Okay, so this is less about capturing new eyeballs, but it's more about what would I say? Warming up the existing eyeballs that you have.
Well, there's two sides of the coin. There is the capturing the new leads, which takes a lot of effort and a lot of work and is worth it.
Yes.
But then there's people that just don't have the time or the expertise to write content each week. Because to be able to do the first one where you're getting all the new leads, you've got to be good at it and you've got to do it regularly. And to be honest, it is something that not for everybody, and it does take a lot of time to see those results. So people sort of do it for about 3 months and give up.
Mm-hmm.
The service that we offer is basically more geared towards your existing client base for referrals to their friends at the barbecue, or their family at the barbecue when something comes up, financial topic. You're going to be front of center, front of their mind when they've gone, hey, my financial advisor gave me something about that on the weekend. I'll flick it your way.
Yeah. Okay. So, considering the content, okay, because I'm just trying to figure out. And I used to think that perhaps content, right? Because everyone hears content is king. Yeah. So you're suggesting that content is not optimal for acquisition, but for being in front of people, so that you're at the front of their mind when they are ready to make a decision.
I would say content is king for acquisition, but it is extremely difficult to do right. Like, we've been writing for about 10, 12 years, probably more, and it's still a very hard thing to get right. There's only about 1% of financial advisors that can write beautiful content that gets out there and gets their name out there, and they become the go-to person. And that's how they get to be that go-to person in the industry. They've got really good content. The market will be too crowded if everybody was that good at doing it as well.
Mm-hmm,
so the service that we try and set up is, hey, not everyone's going to be brilliant at that, but you can still put out really good content to your existing client base and get noticed and referrals that way. So yes, it is good for client acquisition if you can nail it yourself and have the time and the output to do so. Mm-hmm. But then sometimes you just got to go, I'm not the best at this. I'm really good at building customer relations, spending time with client, knowing what their problems are. I'll leave that side of the thing to somebody else.
So we've got client acquisition on one hand. We've got sort of in the middle here this warming up of existing eyeballs, and then we've got conversion, you could say, of those eyeballs into clients, which is really good for me to actually figure out what that framework is, because for as much as I enjoy marketing and I think the reason why I like marketing is because it's sales, but it's not face-to-face. There's something about face-to-face sales that as an individual it throws me off. I don't know why, especially if I believe in the value that I'm delivering, but there is something, but I think I'm in the minority there. I think a lot of people are quite good and comfortable with that, and they should be. I think the problem with sales is when you have someone that's really good at the sales technique, but is not very good at the value delivery behind those sales. I actually love it when someone's great at sales and great at delivering value, for what they've just sold you for. And so the reason why I really like marketing is it gives you the chance to do sales, but at scale. And what I'm hearing from you both is content is a valuable way to scale knowledge, right? And one of the people I talk about, Chris a lot, Chris Bates does a lot of content on LinkedIn as a platform. He sort of figured out that LinkedIn is a microblogging service. And I'd never thought of it like that. And I'm not sure if he's even used those words to me. But certainly that's what he's used it for. And he often does 2 posts a day, one about finance and one about life in general. When I wrote a book a few years ago, I wanted to, punch myself repeatedly in the face for 18 months, but it's done. And off the back of that, I made partnerships with fintechs. At the time, Acorns was quite big, and I became their sort of resident finance guru for about 6 months. And I was writing content once a week for them.
Yep.
And so after wanting to punch myself in the face for 18 months writing a book, I then wanted to punch myself every Friday because I was then writing content. And what I realized was I can do it, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of concentration. Even if I was to do LinkedIn posts like Chris was doing, I can do them, but it takes a long time for me to sort of dig something up from my knowledge base, attach it to something that's topical, and deliver it in a way. And I've unfortunately got a part of my personality that's just like, it just insists on sounding like a complete douchebag when I write. So I'll use the word, for example, saunter. There's no need to use that word. And in my mind, I think, haha, it sounds funny. Everyone's going to know it's a joke. No, never comes across. I read it years later and I think, why did I write that? So it's a skill set. And let's talk about, actually, Thea, I'd love to know where you built the skill set in order to be able to, so we were talking before the podcast is that you were a correspondent reporter, and it's a skill set, right? Like it's something, and where did you learn it from, and tell us about that.
It's certainly something that you can develop. I think one of the key initial learnings of any journalism course is tell it like you tell it at a barbecue. So instead of coming to me with the background or some sort of build-up, go straight to the punchline. So if you were talking to a mate at a barbecue about what happened today, what would be the most interesting thing, kick it off with that. And so that's how you
you deliver sort of communication. You start with the most catchy
Start with
piece.
the punchline,
right?
Drag people in, and then you can go through and develop your ideas. And I think, as you were alluding to with the reference to the word saunter, you do it in a very conversational way. It doesn't have to be blokey or disingenuous, but certainly deliver it the way that you would speak, and that makes it very accessible and very readable.
With the rise of blogging, right? Do you shudder when you just go onto the internet? Are you reading everything that's happening and you just think, wow, I can't believe the people are passing this off as content?
Yes, there is a lot of rubbish out there. I think there are some simple things that you can do to develop good content. The first thing being come up with, as I said, that one initial idea and just hang it around that. Don't try to bring in too many other things. Come up with a leading concept and then 3 dot points that will back up that or develop that concept.
And basically, you also, just going back to what you said about saunter, give it to your new wife and ask her what she thinks about the use of that word. And if she tells you, I'm not sure about it, when in doubt, leave it out.
Yes.
You just, sometimes you're just trying to get too much in and you really want to, and it reads well in your mind, and it might. Sometimes it's worth taking a little risk or two, but every now and then you've just got to be ruthless. You got to cut it. You got to try and aim for that sweet spot of 400 to 600 words because people have short attention spans.
So you recommend 400 to 600 words?
Yep. And break it up. You don't want to see big slabs of text. It's not like a uni assignment where you have a 5-sentence paragraph. 1 sentence per paragraph is tons because when you're reading, particularly on the web, you need all of that white space, and that's where your subcategories can come in.
Oh, interesting. 1 sentence per paragraph.
Yep, absolutely. That's what you do in a newspaper. That's what you do on any online news forums. That's the style.
Or at the very most, one concept per paragraph. You know, you want to keep it quite nice and spaced out, like very digestible. I'm guessing clients are like your children. Everyone wants to think they're also smart and bright and brilliant. They probably are, you know, more savvy than the average person. But make it easy for them. You know, a lot of research shows that people only make it down 2 or 3 sentences before, and they get the general concept and then go to the next, see what's happening with the Kardashians or something. You know, that's who you're pretty much competing with. You know, entertainment space. Like people have only got so much time in their day to read online content. So the easier you can make it for them to read, the more they're going to get down into the whole article and basically understand what you're trying to get across.
Yeah, so just removing all the barriers between the ease of being able to consume the content and natural life getting in the way. That makes sense. Okay, so to dive into that a little bit more, so we're going to go most exciting thing right up front. What's your next sentence or two?
Yeah, so start with the hook, right? Mm-hmm. Really heavy hook with the grabbing intro, the opening paragraph. The next sentence or two, you really want to sort of just keep it quite tight, explain the concept, what's happening. Don't try and maybe use an analogy or two, but don't drag it out for 5-6 parts before you start getting into the media, the meatier parts of it. You want to really get to the point real quick, you know. All the blogs that I read that have 4 or 5 paragraphs, quite chunky, before they get to what I'm there for, I give up on. I'm not sure about you, but I sort of tend to just like, oh, come on, get on with it. Like,
yeah. I think there are people that do content remarkably well. I think Tim Ferriss is an example of that. He talks about some crazy stuff, but he just delivers it in a very easily read format. And I think probably talking about something you mentioned before, like only 1% of people can do that really well. I think he's probably an example of doing that really well. I'm guilty of this as most people are, and it's almost I get upset when I see this happen, and so I never had a blog on any website, any financial planning website, and the reason why I didn't is because I just couldn't keep it up, and that I guess is something interesting. Or what I find is people like evergreen content, yes. Yeah, in my opinion, yes, they do. Only the really good stuff, though, because actually what people want is the newest thing, whatever the newest thing is. And if you think about Facebook, if you go back in time, Facebook back a decade ago was all about your profile. And then after a couple of years, it turned all about the news feed, about home. And then it's always just your new stuff that's at the top. And I realized that for some reason, our brains are more inclined to want to know what's new rather than the evergreen. And so I struggled to write new content all the time. So I tried really hard. For a while, I think I tried for about 6 months to do a Fund Your Ideal Lifestyle blog, which was, I tried to do thousands of words once a month, a video, a podcast, and some other thing I can't remember. But I tried to hit sort of 4 different styles of content, all about the same subject once a month. It's difficult. It's really difficult to punch out a lot of content. Hence why we ended up here at XY doing podcasts, simply because a conversation is easier than a blog. Everyone can talk. This is something I find quite interesting about what you guys do, which is you are helping advisors get more new content out. And from my understanding, the problems that you were looking to solve was less to do with creating evergreen content, but more to do with that news feed, getting it to the top, and so are we talking weekly emails out to the database, or are we talking twice a week, or how, when someone's trying to stay at the top of attention of a database, how often are we talking about hitting them?
Do you want to go? Okay. We send out weekly content to our financial advisor subscribers. We recommend they send it out weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. You don't want to bombard your audience too much. You don't want to be that annoying person that ends up on their Facebook feed all the time.
Yeah.
So you can flood it, and we advise not to. We would recommend probably once a week or fortnight maximum, not unless you're doing your own great content that people are flocking towards. You basically just want to keep front of mind on a fortnightly basis.
Yeah.
Some of our subscribers only send out their content each month, which is also, in that sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's sort of one of those suck it and see approaches, just find out what's working with your best, how much engagement you're getting with your posts, and then, a little bit of A/B testing involved.
So in a perfect scenario, you would have an engine to develop new contacts, an engine to develop new content, and then a process in order to convert those people that are interested into clients. One of the things that I find really interesting more and more these days is the concept of community. Community's been a big thing for XY. One time I did an interview with you and you were sort of asking around, what are some unique ways to get buy-in? Yeah. And actually I mentioned it. It was community, building a community on a Facebook group. And what Finn Kelly from Wealth Enhancers was saying, having a good community is one of the 4 things that a good financial advisor can do. Are you seeing any advisors building communities more than just an email database? So the way that I sort of foresee it is why aren't advisors sort of building online communities and then taking content and producing it in that format rather than just email? Because content can be on any platform, right? So it doesn't have to be on email.
It's bloody hard in a nutshell, as you probably know.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys did a phenomenal job building the XY community.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah, and that article that I interviewed you for a while back was, I've shared that with a lot of people, and it is a very great idea, but it's one of those things that might be easy to talk about, but hard to execute, and you really need to get that right from day dot. How
are subjects decided upon? Obviously, you guys are an engine that professionals can dip into to have the content written for them. That's your value prop. How does 99 Content go about deciding what it is that people are interested in?
Often it's what comes up in conversations with advisors. It's your ear to the ground that gives us the best idea of what people are asking about that week or that month. And so often they're not necessarily evergreen topics, but they're certainly more educational. I mean, often we find people will go through a 2-week, 3-week period where they're getting back-to-back questions about, I don't know, something as simple as negative gearing, and they feel like, I've had this conversation 5 times in the last 2 weeks, let's push something out on that.
Or the childcare changes.
Yeah, childcare. Yeah, often, it's a bit more topical.
Yeah, we get in touch with our subscribers all the time.
Right.
Well, we practice what we preach. We send them a newsletter each
you'd hope so.
Each week, telling them what the content is being pushed into their website, how it'll look on their website.
Cool.
And then at the bottom, call to action. You got anything for us? What are you hearing? Get in touch. We want to hear the stories. And every week, someone writes back, "Hey, I've been hearing this from my clients. Can we get something out on this?"
So when the content goes out, it's going out onto their website, not in an email.
No, so we send them the content in an email saying, "Hey, this is what's been put in your site. This is how it'll all look. This is, but it's also in the back end. By that stage, it's already in their website in draft form, ready to go. And then they just hit publish, and it'll look pretty much similar to what our e-newsletter.
Yeah, right. So you guys must be WordPress masters at this stage.
Mate, we're very good at learning things on the go.
Do you ever get really old school, sort of hard coded HTML that there's not even an easy way to hit publish?
No, it's always, WordPress is really funny. It's so uniform, but every WordPress theme's a little bit different. Sometimes the image shape won't fit one website just right, but normally it does. But haven't run into too many WordPress hiccups yet. But we've got someone, if in case it does, that there's someone on the job. But yeah, I've had to learn a little bit of HTML coding as well. Yeah. It was a little bit of fun. When you put something in code and then you see it change on the page, you're like, you can work out how Zuckerberg's coders work those 24-hour shifts non-stop, those little adrenaline feedbacks.
Right, I'd have to go back to my GeoCities days in the early 2000s. I remember I had some HTML code doing something I can't quite remember, but yeah, I can faintly remember being interested by it. Look, there's a lot of content in the world, right? Huge amounts. You're probably in a better position to be able to tell me exactly how much, but to the tune of, I'm inventing numbers here, but billions of blogs, right, per month or whatever. Why people still care about content marketing? Well, as a consumer, yeah, it's everywhere. Why do I don't have time. Why am I going to sit down and read a 5-minute article?
You got to make it. You got to make it. Drag them in. You got to make. That's the important bit. You've got to have a lead that says, "Is this applicable to you?"
Yeah.
And it's got to be applicable to a large percentage of your client base, because if it's not, then they're just going to keep the scroll button going down to the next thing. Maybe a new puppy that their friends got or something on Facebook.
Yeah.
Or the next email that's in there. So, you've got to have a strong hook. And it's all about what is that hook, what Thea alluded to earlier. And that's how you make them care. Because you know what? There is a lot of competition out there for their eyeballs,
100%.
And I'm the same, mate. I'm in front of a screen for about 12 hours a day working on the two businesses.
Yeah.
And, there is a lot of fighting for your attention. So what you got to do is try and make it as focused as possible on what matters to them. And you know what matters to them. Like you're in touch with them on a daily basis.
And without falling into the trap of trashy clickbait, you kind of do want to make it clickbait. You want your hook and your lead to surprise or intrigue or create a sense of urgency. There's got to be some sort of emotional reaction to that headline and first few lines of the story that makes people want to get in, feel that they are compelled to get in now and read that now. So I think that is probably what you're looking for when you're putting together that hook or that lead.
How does one avoid becoming BuzzFeed? It's a difficult question, right?
Well, you just don't, for example, say the 10 most drastic consequences of what's going to happen with the childcare changes.
Okay.
Is your kid going to be affected?
Right.
It's like, hey, there's some childcare changes coming into play.
Yeah.
Could this affect you? Find out with our latest article. Not like,
Yeah. It's weird, the amount of looking into content that I have discovered some strange things about humanity. So, and I'm sure you both would know this very more adequately than I do, and that is people are driven, or our strongest emotion, or what we react to the most, is anger, and a lot of these headlines or news articles and pretty much journalism is just a result of what people are clicking on, right? And it turns out we're clicking on the things that are unbelievable and worst thing ever, and as you said, the consequence of, and it always reminds me of when the relatively successful Australian entrepreneur Dick Smith created a newspaper called the Good News newspaper, and lasted for, I believe, exactly one publication, and it is crazy. So people listening to this, are going to have some concept of these things, right? So when they're sitting down to read, to create content, how do they use these levers that we all know to use without falling into, like a situation where they end up being BuzzFeed, so to speak?
It's a good question. But essentially, when we write our articles, we write it from the perspective of the advisor speaking to their clients. And what that means is your readers will essentially think that it's the advisor talking to them.
Yeah.
Now, it's really important for us not to write negative stories or have drastic consequences when that's going. We try and keep it extremely positive, as though the advisor is actually speaking to their client themselves. Because now I'm not a financial advisor. However, I can imagine if I was, I'd try and remain optimistic in all my dealings with clients and encouraging and, a little bit like, making sure you don't over-promise and under-deliver.
Yeah.
So we try to steer away from bad news and negative, and we try to put good positive spins on things and encourage and have positive reinforcement in all the stories that we write, rather than talking about how the sky's falling in because of this one legislation change.
Yeah. Congratulations, everyone. The Royal Commission is on.
Yeah, and, we try and also frame I'm glad you brought that. We don't shy away from that a whole lot. Like, we do put content out there on that, talking about, hey, it's not people like us that they're after.
Yeah.
We're the good guys, They're chasing the bigger players and the malpractices that are occurring in that space. So we do try and put a positive spin on it and make sure that, the clients of our subscribers understand that, hey, these guys have still got our best interests at heart.
And so, sorry.
And I think good content marketing is empowering. Essentially, you're providing value. So you're talking about an issue that, if mishandled, may lead to certain consequences, but you're empowering the client to understand that, to come into you from a position of taking a positive step rather than striking fear in them, because ultimately you should be ending with a call to action, which is, hey, it's, yes, things could go wrong, but it's not that bad. Come in, let's have a chat about it, and we'll set you on the right track.
Yeah. How many different, just to duck into your business for a moment, how many different fields is your company creating content for?
2, basically, primarily, mortgage brokers and financial advisors, sorry.
Yep.
We do have the third, accountants, that do, but we've stopped doing content specifically for accountants, just so we can focus on financial advisors and mortgage brokers at this stage. Primarily because you can write one financial advice story a week, one mortgage broking content story a week, and then the two will have some overlaps 80% of the 75% of the time. So you can give them each industry a little bit extra content, and sometimes, they won't publish the story, which is fine. But if we can do that and provide them with extra value, we do. Accountants, we're probably going to focus on again in the new year. But at the moment, we just want to make sure that the clients that we've got and the subscribers, that we give them the best possible content that we can.
Yeah. How did you come across this business model?
So yeah, basically I was writing for, the content agencies.
Yes.
And I can't remember. It was for a hub where I was writing for financial advisors, and another one where I was writing for mortgage brokers, and they didn't have access to good content that was affordable. People kept asking me, hey, I've noticed that you're doing content. I was like, we charge $500 an article. We can't. I don't think, you almost felt guilty saying that. So then I just came up with the idea that if I could write one article and find 50 subscribers and charge them $10 each for the article, then I could actually do it. And then I sort of had a few beers with Thea's dad, discussed it. Thea didn't completely reject the idea, which I know it's normally a goer then.
And the other thing that is different to the content that is provided often for free by licensing groups, etc., is the way that it is coded to ensure that there's no duplicate content issues. So that can be, although there is content that's made available by peak bodies and things like that, there can be issues that you run into if you are publishing that verbatim.
Yeah, you need to make sure it's got the correct canonical linking in place, which we do automatically when we put it into their articles, into their websites. So you see a lot of websites do run into that sort of trouble a lot, where they'll just rip it off one other page, put it on theirs, and not do the canonical linking properly, which can lead to SEO issues on Google.
What's canonical linking?
Yes, so, well, we don't want to give too much of our secrets away, but basically you've got to make sure that there's a canonical link. If you're having content that's on a website and it's ripped from somewhere else, or it exists somewhere else,
Yes.
you've got to make sure that you have a canonical link that's an invisible link, but that basically tells Google or the other search engine overlords, hey, this is part of a syndicated network.
We're putting our hands up and saying, it's meant to be here.
This is the original source. Don't punish these guys for republishing it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so that's where there's a lot of duplicate content. You ask 20 people what it is, and you'll probably get 20 different responses. However, this is what Google recommends as best practice, is the canonical linking. There's other ways you can tell Google not to index this page and whatnot.
Sure.
What Google likes is when you put these canonical links in. The reason why it's so effective on WordPress for us is because we can push that content with that canonical link in automatically. Squarespace, we can't. However, they can do it manually, which takes only another 30 seconds to a minute.
Sure.
So we still take on Squarespace, people that Squarespace websites, but it's just a tiny little bit of extra work that's involved.
Yeah, financial planning websites are just the weirdest thing. So many of them look so similar. And if you look at them through the eyeballs of someone who's not a financial planner, I think a lot of these websites do more to confuse the client than they do help them. I mean, there are exceptions to those rules, but most financial planning websites you turn up on, and there's not even a purpose for them, right? There's nothing to do. There might be a join a newsletter thing, but that's maybe. Other than that, it's just very sort of standard and generic sort of language. I actually want to dive into personas a little bit more because that's something at XY we've started paying a lot more attention to. So at the moment on our Facebook group, we are literally one stream, and everything that goes on that group has to be valuable, hopefully, to at least the majority of people. But the problem with the group being sort of the size that it is now, it's hard. It's really difficult. And so we're actually working on a solution at the moment to help with helping people nail what it is that they're interested in getting a little bit more into. And the more that we dive into that, we're sort of realizing that our community, much like, I guess, your client base, are advisors at different stages in their career with different types of clients that are doing different things. And we've been thinking about how best to talk to the community. And while we haven't as yet decided upon these avatars or these personas, it's definitely on the horizon. So that's coming up. I would say within the next couple of months. We're very much going to sit down and figure out who's there and how do we best talk to them about exactly what it is. And it might actually just be as simple as asking people what they're most interested in. Like, I don't think there's that much science behind it, but we've never asked. And so are you delivering that kind of service? Do you have... Right. This messaging or this weekly piece of content is for our advisors whose client base is 25 to 45, and then this is 60 and above, and this is 45 to 60. Are you starting to get into that level of persona?
Yeah, so we do. We try, because we look at all our subscribers in their businesses, and you want to make sure that someone who's focusing on SMSFs has that content to give to their
definitely.
audience. But then you've also got another subscriber that's looking for the just tap into the huge potential of the millennial market that's coming through. So you've got to make sure you balance it out. You don't want one end of your subscribers going, hey, you're not giving us enough content up the top here, mate. And you don't want the others to say, hey, you're giving us too much in the property market space, trying to break into the first home buyers. A couple of my, a lot of my clients are property investors that are a bit savvy. So you've just got to mix it up, and we do have content mapped out going about 3 months ahead, but obviously legislative changes come into place, so things get bumped down the line. You've got to be flexible at the same time. You've got to you've got to map it out, because we've got to practice what we preach.
Totally.
So we map it out, but we're flexible. Things can shift, come in, and we do give a really good spread.
And what percentage of your client base is doing their own they're complementing your content on top?
I'd say probably about 50-50.
Yeah, right.
Maybe a little bit less.
Yes.
I find they do at the start. And then once we sort of give them that steady stream and they know that that's just ticking over, looking after itself quite nicely, then we find that they sort of, because I do keep an eye on all the websites, because you get a really big buzz seeing how it looks and how it makes their website look. And I really take pride in what we do. So
absolutely.
We go around all the websites, look, and then sometimes if we notice that there's something that they could improve, then we give them feedback on that, politely, obviously.
Yeah.
But
well, before we kick off and tell people how that they can touch base with you, I'd love for perhaps for you both just to give your top tip, your number one idea that if people were to either improve what they're currently doing or to get the gumption to start doing it, what would be your top idea for them to improve their content marketing skills?
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
You go.
Okay. Don't be afraid to write. Just write. If so many people get stuck because they just can't write, just start putting words on a page. No matter if it sucks, it doesn't matter. You're the only one that's going to read it, or maybe your partner will read it. But that doesn't matter. They're always supportive, So just write and then edit it down. Just write it and then try and get it with subheaders and within 500 words. But if you're stuck, just skip on to the next section that you can think about, and don't do it if you don't know what a nice fancy intro is, just start getting into the meat of it and then come back to the intro later. Just start writing.
Cool.
And set some time aside each week to do so.
Yeah.
I think planners are obviously often great speakers, and their strength is sitting in front of someone and explaining something face to face. So if you're looking at a blank piece of paper and feeling quite terrified by that, one thing that you can do is simply hit record on your desktop, talk straight down the microphone, and then there's these great transcribing services. So you just record whatever the topic is that you want to discuss, drop it in that transcribing service. There's one called Trint and there's one called, what's the other one that's good? Yeah.
Just trint.com.
Awesome.
About 30 cents Australian dollars a word. A minute.
That's so cheap.
So it's because I think rev.com charges
$1. Yeah.
But this one's automatic for you. It happens instantly, and it's about 95% accuracy.
And it'll get to know your voice. Yeah. And that way you're not starting with a blank piece of paper. You've got something on paper that you can then group and rearrange or break up with subheaders or massage or think, what was I yabbering on about there? Let's delete that whole section. You've got something to cut down, whereas if you're starting with nothing, that's often quite overwhelming.
Actually, that's better than my tip, because you record all the conversations anyway, right? As a financial advisor. So it's there. You just got to plug it into a computer, and then it'll write it for you, and then you just massage it out. Yeah. Awesome. Forget what I said. Just listen to Thea.
Well, look, thank you so much for coming back on. For the advisors that are interested in finding out more, how do they contact you?
Okay, so it's 99content.co, C-O. And yeah, that's got all our contact details on that webpage. We're going to be running a 2-month free trial for anyone who's part of the XY community.
Cool.
So just obviously let us know when you get in contact that you found out through you lovely guys, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I know marketing is a huge topic and client acquisition. And look, it's been hugely valuable. I think content marketing is definitely one of those key pieces that a lot of advisors do need to nail down. So thank you very much for your insights.
No worries. Pleasure to be here.
Cheers.